Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. What's poppin', Ricardo?
What's up?
We have 0 mock drafts this week.
I know it's kind of weird. Not like us at all.
Okay, we totally said that at the same time. So this week we have hard draft day decisions on Thursday's show, but for this show we have league winners, and then going into next week we have a mock draft to start the week, and then we're going to talk about top 5 forgotten players before we switch to 3 episodes a week starting in August and the run up to the regular season. I believe that first week of August is the first preseason game. I don't know who's playing in it.
Is it first week of August, really?
Yeah, they usually start a week before everyone else. Whatever.
Oh, like what is it called?
The something bowl. What the heck is it called?
Yeah, the old school bowl.
I feel like we should know this.
We 100% should.
Hall of Fame game? Is that what it's called?
Hall of Fame game. Yes,
yeah,
that's the one.
So we got a lot of stuff prepared for the month of August. But as we approach training camps, literally next week, we're going to try to give you our top 5 league winners and our top 5 draft day decisions this week. And on this episode, obviously, league winners. League winners, I think, is my favorite show. One of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Because obviously, this is the one area that I feel like is the hardest to project. And I'll get to that in a second. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those platforms. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below. And also, if you are in the realm of social media, please let us know if that's something you'd be interested in. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it. And that hurts a little.
You're going to have to do it?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that's going to be hard.
So anyway, so we have our top 5 league winners, and I think the most challenging aspect of fantasy football that I found, specifically in our home league that I'm the commissioner of, and when you're the commissioner, there is a curse. There's a curse placed upon you where you cannot win. I call it the commissioner's curse, because you're the commissioner and you're cursed. And I can't seem to win my home league because I am cursed by the commissioner's curse. Every year I seem to not have the league winners, at least in that league. It's very strange. But anyway,
you're always close, though.
I'm always close. I'm right there. But anyway, I found in all of my fantasy leagues over the last 5-6 years that having a league winner is probably the most crucial aspect to a championship. And in the past, I've been all about and Rick could probably say the same. I've always been about finding the most consistent players because those win you games, and they always win you games. I always win regular season games.
Yeah,
the playoffs, you need league winners. So, but the science behind finding a league winner is extremely difficult because literally anyone can break out at any point. Last year, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel shattered everyone's expectations of what people thought they were going to be, and they ended up being top-tier talents and got a lot of people a championship just by being on their team. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so
the person who won the championship in our league had both guys.
Oh yeah, that's good. No, I don't like that at all. And so what we're gonna try to do on this show today is give you our top 5 league winners, or give you some players that we think by the end of the year we'll be talking about as a player that won a lot of leagues, like the Cooper Kupps and the Deebo Samuels from last year. Who would you say at the running back position won leagues last year, by the way? JT probably.
JT for sure. Where was Eckler drafted last Wasn't he a second round pick?
Sixth round? I think he
No,
was
second round.
Oh, I thought you said sixth. I'm like, what that
No,
maybe
no,
7 years ago. Yeah, I think he was a second round pick.
Because he was RB2 last year.
That was
so
surprising.
I think that was...
What was his playoff stretch like?
I
I
can check.
I'm looking that up now. Because that really
he had a really good, in PPR at least. He had a week 16 bye, so that's kind of weird. Or he didn't play in week 16, sorry. But week 15 he had 18, and then week 17 he had 20. So that's not bad.
Yeah, so 15, 17, and 18 he had. So 16 he would just be not in the playoffs, but he was RB12 and RB1 in PPR.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was good. He was pretty good.
He might have been. Joe Mixon, too, is another guy. I think he finished in the top 5 for running backs last year. And he went in the second round in a lot of leagues, like mid to late second round.
Who was it again?
Early third round, even in some. Joe Mixon.
Oh, yeah. He was good, too.
Thanks to the Bengals offense being what it was.
Jonathan
Taylor for sure, yeah.
Definitely is that guy.
He was the league winner, though.
Looking at, last year's numbers in 2021. Standard. Why is it always put it in standard? I hate you sometimes, Sleeper.
Fournette might have been another guy because he was drafted.
Oh, yeah. He was drafted
in like the 6th round.
Right.
Same with James Conner.
Mm-hmm. So, Cordero Patterson, too, saving.
That, I don't even count that.
Listen, the savior of the zero running back strategy.
He wasn't even that good at the end of the season. He was a top 5 running back in the first half of the season.
I was listening to another podcast do a mock draft just recently, and it was 3 wide receiver PPR league, so obviously wide receivers go. One team went 4 wide receivers first.
This year,
yeah.
Oh my god,
that seems like a brutal strategy.
See, when you say zero running back,
I think the running backs were Miles Sanders. No. Maybe not Miles Sanders. Never mind. I forgot the running backs. Go ahead, George. What were you
gonna say? But usually teams that do zero running back will take a tight end or a quarterback in the first couple rounds.
4 wide receivers.
So at least every position filled.
Consistency.
But this dude just took 4 receivers. Yep. So he still needed a quarterback, a tight end, and 3 running backs. That's not a great idea.
So to you, Rick, before we jump into our league winners, because we probably should do that in the next minute or so. What is a league winner?
A league winner is, it's pretty simple. It's someone who wins your league. You're probably not going to draft them in the first round. It's someone who doesn't necessarily mean they came out of nowhere, because I said Joe Mixon and Eckler were guys that I kind of considered league winners. Those were second-round picks last year. But there's someone who definitely surpasses their expectations.
Yeah.
And usually teams that win championships have a high percentage of these guys on their teams.
Yeah. So you got to find them. I think it's very challenging. I try to factor in a lot of different variables. So, strength of schedule obviously comes into play.
Sure.
Strength of schedule, opportunity, stuff
usually,
like that.
too, if you look at the league winners, how many of them are in a bad offense?
0.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor might have been in the worst one, and it was still a top 15 offense in the league. It wasn't a bad.
No, it was not a bad offense at all. Yeah, typically they're in a good offense. Like Debo was in San Francisco, Cooper Kupp, obviously the Rams winning the Super Bowl. Jonathan Taylor's in a good offense, so yeah, typically that's a good requisite too. If you're in a good offense, you have a good schedule, and you're getting a lot of opportunity. There's a good chance that you could do that. But sometimes guys are just not there. They have all the things that make sense for them, and they just don't. So anyway, we're going to give you our top 5 league winners right now, if you're cluing in after 8 minutes. So let's talk about our number 1 guy. And this offensive situation is very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more on Thursday about the complexities of it, but it's Jerry Judy of the Denver Broncos. And I think for me, the main point of why this guy will be a league winner is more specifically because I think we were talking before the show about how last year there were people that liked Cooper Kupp for fantasy football and that they were drafting him on all their teams. But Rick and I, even after the season, we talked about like, why did we not clue in on Cooper Kupp more to be like, you need to get this guy in your team because he was an absolute smash. His quarterback situation changed to a better quarterback. The Rams offense, they were all in. But yet Cooper Kupp was not a guy that people were jumping over the table to draft as soon as their pick got up. And you take that sticker and put Cooper Kupp's name up there. They weren't doing it. And what round was he in? The 6th? Is that correct? 6th, 7th?
Cooper Kupp?
Yeah.
I think he was a 5th by the end of it.
Okay. But no one expected him to blow up and become the number one wide receiver in fantasy football. So I was thinking, can that happen again this year? Obviously, any guy that I compare that to is not going to be as good as Cooper Kupp. First off, that season he had is astronomical. Cooper Kupp can't even replicate it. Like,
historic.
But can there be another situation in the NFL where there's a wide receiver that people had a lot of expectations for that steps up, probably getting drafted in the 4th, 5th round and had the same change of, offense, the change of quarterback that can elevate them to the next level? And I keep going back to the Denver Broncos and their offensive situation after getting Russ. Rick, I think, said that they were They were 19.
We're 19th in the NFL last year in yards per game.
Yeah.
So 19th in the NFL.
So, you add Russell Wilson to that, and even if he only improves your team by 10 spots, you're a top 10 offense in the NFL.
Yeah, and people, I think, are underestimating, and I said this before the show, but the upgrade that Russell Wilson is over Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. It is massive. It's a massive upgrade.
Yeah, Russ, he even hobbled Russ is a massive upgrade.
Yes.
Over Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock.
And it's the same thing last year where a lot of people had the take that Jared Goff was really just as good as Matt Stafford or close. And then it clearly ended up not being that.
Yep.
And I think people aren't saying that this year, but they're like, it's not a huge upgrade, or they're really just kind of underestimating the upgrade that it is.
Yes.
And with a guy like Judy in his third year, which is historically the year that a receiver breaks out as well.
Yeah.
He's in the perfect opportunity. He's just got to stay healthy. He wasn't healthy at all last year. Didn't have any touchdowns. I think those things will obviously change, especially the touchdowns this year. And he's extremely talented. He was the 15th overall pick. We know what he's capable when he's on the field. We've seen the routes that he runs. I think it's just a really good fit. People are obviously going to say Sutton, and I could see that too. I think Sutton's a good draft pick, and he's a good fit as well. But I think in terms of pure route running talent, I think it's going to end up being Judy, who's slightly ahead of Sutton. But it could be either guy, but we're putting our flag on Judy.
So for Jerry Judy too, in the past years, obviously not having a quarterback has kind of hindered his success. But, he was drafted literally in the same breath as Justin Jefferson, as CeeDee Lamb, right?
Yes.
And so he hasn't had that success, but what has Justin Jefferson had? A quarterback. What has CeeDee Lamb had? A quarterback. Yeah. Jerry Judy has not had a quarterback. And so the hate on Judy right now is, in my opinion, unwarranted. He hasn't had, there's been some, drops, and there's been some bad plays by Judy, obviously.
No question.
But when you don't have a quarterback, that's going to cap you. Name a rookie quarterback that walks into the NFL without a quarterback and has success. I can't even think of one.
There isn't.
Terry McLaurin?
And it's funny because, if you look at some of his advanced, maybe McLaurin.
Oh, good God.
If you look at some of Judy's advanced stats, his target accuracy was 65th in the league.
Oh my God. That's brilliant.
So that just shows his quarterback play. His true catch rate was 84.4%. His catchable target rate 80%.
Bro, but I think the efficiency metric that stands out to me that I think shows people why this guy should be considered, a very good wide receiver and should be in the same, breadth and conversation as obviously a Cortland Sutton, but maybe even better, and a guy that could break out like DK Metcalf was for, Russ in Seattle, is he was number 1 in the NFL in target separation, 2.45.
Yeah, I saw that.
And do you know what that tells me? That Jerry Judy is a spectacular route runner.
Yep.
So he may have he had 4 drops last year, which is not great.
No, and I think the year before that he had like 5 or 6 drops too.
Right.
Drops is definitely, he had 8 drops his rookie season. So,
but there's nothing to me that shows that Jerry Judy's not talented.
Yeah, reminds me a little bit of Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, a little bit.
Where he has that elite route running ability. He does have problems dropping the ball, but you can see the talent is clearly there.
Right. And there's things that he does need to clean up, but I think having Russ as his quarterback will make
Helps.
Absolutely will help. So the big thing about Jerry Judy is obviously, he has Cortland Sutton on the other side in the argument between them. And I just have one quick question for you because, like I said, we will talk about this in more detail on Thursday, between the decision between these two guys. But who is the more talented wide receiver, Jerry Judy or Cortland Sutton?
I've always liked Sutton. I remember, I think Flacco was the quarterback a couple years ago, and he made a one-handed catch in the end zone, and I was like, whoa, who's this guy?
Yeah.
So he's clearly this isn't a knock on Sutton, but I think it's Judy.
I agree. So that particular point is why, obviously for me, he's on this list because I think he is more talented. Thus, if he gets the target share and he is the number 1 wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, he will then ascend into that, top 10 conversation, breakout, and possibly be a league winner. The other thing I wanted to bring up really quickly before we move on, and Rick, if you have any other points, just say them when I'm done with this. But Jerry Judy, his strength of schedule right now is 7.8 in ranking on Fantasy Pros, which is one of the highest in the entire NFL. So I think among starting wide receivers, that's second.
Yep.
So he has a very easy strength of schedule for the season. All of that kind of combines together. We were talking about strength of schedule, check the box for Jerry Judy. We were talking about offense, definitely going to be a top 10 offense. Checks the box there. And obviously, he's going to get the opportunity in this offense. So all of those 3 things combined, I love Jerry Judy. I think the talent level will ascend him into that top 10 conversation and will make him a league winner this year, especially when you can snag him, in the 5th, 6th round?
Yep. Well, he's moving up now. He's starting to move up.
Friggin' idiots.
5th round, I think, in sleeper, and he's like late
off my
4th in a underdog.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming though.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Is Jalen Hurts. Rick, tell me why Jalen Hurts is a league winner for 2022.
So Jalen Hurts, he's someone who we were both high on last year. You were definitely higher on him, but I did like him. I drafted him in some best ball leagues, and it worked out. He was, I think, he was QB9 last season, so pretty good. And that's about where he's getting drafted this year, maybe a little bit higher. I think he's getting drafted like QB8 in that range. And I think that's great value for a guy who might be a top 3 quarterback this year. He was QB9 and he missed 2 games. He obviously, we know about his rushing. He had 139 rushing attempts for 784 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. So the rushing should stay there, I think. He's only in year 3 of his career, so there's definitely no stopping. Yeah. He's not getting old or anything, so his rushing should stay about where that is. And we all know about the rushing quarterbacks and how much we talk about those guys and how they're so great for fantasy football.
Yeah.
But what the thing that makes him, to me this year, the difference between this year and last year is now he has A.J. Brown, who, when healthy, is a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
My God. I have a Titans jersey of him. I need to go out and get an Eagles jersey.
Yeah, and I think he complements Devontae Smith's game really well.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is going to be an elite passing team,
No.
but Hurts should have better passing numbers this year with AJ Brown on the team. I mean, the weapons that he has, AJ Brown. We talk about Tua, and a lot of people talk about Tua and how they think he's going to be great this year because he has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Hurts has AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. That's a pretty good trio of weapons there. And I don't think he's throwing 30 touchdowns or 5,000 yards or anything like that. But if he can get to 25 touchdown passes with close to 4,000 yards, that's a huge upgrade on what he did last year.
Yeah.
And you repeat the rushing, top 3 fantasy quarterback.
Agree.
That's a league winner to get in whatever. I think the 8th round, wherever he's going.
Yeah, something like that. It might be slightly higher, but I'm not
7th
sure.
round.
Yeah.
Even so, he's going behind, Joe Burrow.
Mhm.
He's behind Kyler Murray. I an underdog. He's going behind Russ as well. I could be wrong, but he's still QB like 7 or 8.
63.
So.
QB9 off the board.
QB9, yeah. So I think you're drafting him out as pretty much his floor.
Yeah,
because he was QB9 last year.
Agree. There was a statistic that I was telling Rick before the show about Jalen Hurts that I think it's like I'm not going to give exact numbers because I can't remember the exact numbers, but he had like 55 plus yards per game on the ground. And then at one point in the season, he ended up getting injured. I can't remember if he missed time or not, but after that injury, he dropped to around 25 to 29 yards per carry on the ground. Not yards per carry, yards per game on the ground. And if you gave him that extra 25 yards in the rest of the games that he played for the whole season, he would have been like a top 3, top 4 quarterback in fantasy football. So he was pacing out at that. And obviously injuries and other things with the Eagles offense changed. But like Rick said, that A.J. Brown, I think, is the biggest factor in the whole situation, because now having A.J. Brown, you have a top 10 wide receiver. I don't know if he's going to be that in fantasy, but a top 10 wide receiver talent-wise in the NFL on your team who's going to draw stuff away from your brand new rookie wide receiver, Devonta Smith. So now you have maybe one of the, I would say a top 5 to top 7 wide receiver tandem in the NFL on your team now. And then you have a good offensive line. You have Miles Sanders. You have Dallas Goedert. Like this offense is really, I think, a little bit underrated, to be completely honest with you. Like people are saying it's going to just completely suck. They might not pass it a lot, but
no.
I think A.J. Brown makes Jalen Hurts a little bit better as a passer. And I think
opens up the whole offense too.
It opens up the whole offense. So Jalen Hurts is going to run around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he's going to make a ton of plays. And I think this is going to be a really good season fantasy-wise for Jalen Hurts. And I think if you're just in a one-quarterback league that's even 4-point, you have an obvious advantage with a quarterback that can rush, like a Lamar or even a Jalen Hurts. And I think Jalen Hurts ascends from that kind of slight breakout he had last year into the top 3 this year, and kind of surprises everyone. If you can get that at QB9, that's unbelievable value.
And then for the offense, we'll see if it checks the box. Without telling you where they finished, what do you think? How much do you think they improved by adding A.J. Brown? How many spots would you say? Not a ton, because he's just a wide receiver, but a couple spots.
5 to 7.
Yeah. So they were they're the 14th ranked offense in yards per game. So that would put them in the top 10. Even if it's just 5 spots, that would make them the 9th best offense in the NFL in terms of yards. So
14th last year.
And even points, they were pretty good. I think they averaged 26 points per game.
Yeah.
Which I believe was in the top 10. It was like 11th or 10th. So
yeah.
They were already a fringe top 10 offense last year, and you add in A.J. Brown. Yep. So the offense is going to be there. The situation is going to be there. I like it with Jalen Hurts a lot this year.
Me too. All right, let's move on to our number 3 league winner for 2020. This is it's not a hot take. I don't think it should be a hot take, but it's a little bit of a step out of the box for me, and it's Mike Evans.
Yep.
It hurts a little because I've never been really in on Mike Evans. I don't draft him. I feel like I've said it before, even this offseason, I feel like his floor kind of caps out at like 7 or 8. But the more I've thought about it as the offseason has gone along, and the more I've heard about Chris Godwin and the injury and the different stuff going on with that, and then the changes that have happened to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this offseason with Gronk retiring. A lot of people have said Gronk is retiring with air quotes around it because, he always comes back when Brady gives the beck and call, but he sounds like he's done this time. He literally was in New England for whatever reason. I don't know why he would come to Boston, but he was at some kind of event in Boston and they asked him if he was going to play. And if this was just, if he was really done, and he said, no, I'm never playing football again. He was very definitive. So I don't think Gronk's coming back to save the day at all. They don't have Chris Godwin to start the season. They lost Antonio Brown, and obviously all of these weapons that they've had in the past are gone, and what you're left with is Mike Evans. And Mike Evans has been consistent. He's been good by himself. He's a number one outside receiver. He's very talented. Like, all of these things come together for Mike Evans, and obviously you have the greatest of all time who can't seem to die when it comes to football, in Tom Brady throwing you the ball. I think all of the signs point to Mike Evans having a 160 target season and having probably the best season of his career. I think offensive efficiency will take a drop, but what the Bucs lose in other areas, I think Mike Evans will make up for. So he's going to get a lot of work, especially early in the season. And I think it's going to lead to him having a league winner-like season where at the end of the year, people are like, wow, I should have drafted Mike Evans a little bit higher than I did. And I think you can get him top of the third in a 12-team in PPR and half PPR. So I think that's great value too. Like if I was able to get him as my number one wide receiver there, I'd feel good about it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and even the last 2 years with Godwin being there, with Gronk being there, and Antonio Brown even being there for a couple weeks, Mike Evans has been a top 10 guy in half PPR and PPR the last 2 seasons with Brady. So I don't think that really changes. And now he has potentially more targets to work with. I mean, he had 109 in 2020, 114 in 2021. I think you could be looking at 130 to 140 targets this year.
Yeah.
Could efficiency be down? Maybe a little bit. But it won't matter if his volume's much higher.
Right.
So I agree. I think Evans is a league winner. You're getting a guy who could be a top 5 receiver in the 3rd round. To me, it's a home run pick. And this is someone who I've been higher on Mike Evans than you, but he's still not my favorite player in the league, but he's in a really good spot, especially if Godwin is going to be out for those couple weeks. Gronk's not playing. Gronk was a huge red zone guy.
Yeah.
The last couple years, I think he had. I'll double check that. He only had 6 touchdowns actually, so that is less than I thought.
Yeah.
But that's still 6 touchdowns getting taken away. I don't think Cameron Brate gets all 6 of those. Mike Evans is already a huge touchdown guy, though, 14 and 13 the last 2 seasons. So I think you can rely on that. And then if the targets go up, obviously the catches and yards go up. You're looking at around that 6 to 5 range for receivers. So I think he's going to be a guy who's on a lot of championship teams. And is the offense worse than it was last year? Maybe. But that was the number 2 offense in the NFL. So you're probably still looking at a top 6 or 7 offense in the league.
Right. Yeah, and Mike Evans too has, I think, the 2nd easiest strength of schedule among wide receivers in the top 10. Actually, no, it's the 1st. So, I mean, all of this lines up for him to have a really, really. I honestly think, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think he might have the best season of his career this year. So,
wow. He was a wide receiver 1 in 2016. So.
With who?
Jameis Winston.
Yeah, see, and Mike Evans was the only wide receiver.
True.
So yeah,
Very true.
I'll definitely snag Mike Evans as a league winner this year. Number 4, a little bit of a breakout, a little bit of a league winner, Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. And there's a lot of variables that go into Michael Pittman. But Rick, I want to hear your thoughts on why this man is a league winner.
Yeah. Well, he was the wide receiver 17 last season. So that's already, you could make the argument that he already had a breakout last year. He was a solid wide receiver 2, was a weekly flex high-end guy. This year, T.Y. Hilton is gone. They have not re-signed him. There is nobody in that wide receiver room. Right now, it's probably Paris Campbell might be their wide receiver 2. If not, it's second-round rookie Alex Pierce, who is a rookie wide receiver. Alec Pierce, whatever. So that leaves Michael Pittman to really be the guy for the Indianapolis Colts in that offense. He had 129 targets. What is it?
Kiki Kuti back in the day.
Oh, did they sign him?
Yeah, he's like number 7th on the depth
He's
chart.
only listed as their wide receiver 6 on the ESPN depth chart.
So
yeah,
Player Profiler didn't even give him that gratitude. He was wide receiver 7 on there.
Oof, yikes. And then you had Matt Ryan, who, statistically, I don't know if he's going to be an upgrade over Carson Wentz.
I actually think he will be, because he's a better quarterback right now than Carson Wentz was.
I agree with that. I do think he is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. Maybe not like so. Carson Wentz last year statistically was actually not too bad. But he had like the 3,500 yards, for example. Matt Ryan last year had probably the worst year of his career, and he still threw 3,900 yards.
Yep.
So you're probably still going to get a 4,000-yard season. And then the touchdowns maybe stays about the same.
I think he throws more.
Maybe. What is it?
I think he throws more than that.
Yeah, like I said, last year was probably his worst year of his career. I mean, he's going to a much better situation.
If I had to take the over on like 22 touchdowns, I would take it. Probably like 25 or 26 touchdowns, which is something he's done in the past. But
which is about what Carson Wentz did last year.
Yeah.
So either way, but who on that team, other than Michael Pittman Jr., could you see having even like 5 or 6 receiving touchdowns?
See, I thought you were going to ask receptions, and I was going to say obviously Paris Campbell, but yeah, receiving touchdowns. Michael Pittman and no one else. Okay. Jonathan Taylor might catch 6.
I don't think he's catching 6.
I just was gonna check to see if they got a tight end, and
Mo Alley Cox.
Nobody.
Might get a couple.
I don't know. This could be a 10+ touchdown here for Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I mean, he has that capability.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, let's say he gets like 8, which would still be really good and better than what it was last year, and kind of a realistic number. That's 2 more touchdowns than he did last year. He's going to get probably 140, 150 targets, being the only guy now. Not the only guy, but clearly the best guy in that offense. Yeah. With Matt Ryan, so probably more efficient, probably better yards per reception. Maybe not yards per reception, but definitely more efficient. And now you're looking at a top 10 receiver that, once again, you're getting later on. We always look at these guys every single year. Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, these guys that are getting drafted in the 4th, 5th round at the receiver position that end up ascending into wide receiver 1s.
Yeah. Michael
Pittman feels like he's going to be that guy this year. Or at least he's one of the candidates for it, for sure.
Yeah. And I was a fan of Michael Pittman when they drafted him. Because, they had T.Y. Hilton and literally nobody else besides Paris Campbell. And you look at the Indianapolis Colts at this point, and like obviously T.Y.'s gone, but it's clear that they want this guy to be their X receiver on the outside. Like this is the role they have for him. This is what they want him to be. And like Rick said, I mean, he literally last year had 88 catches on 129 targets. And I definitely could see 140, maybe even 150 targets, which would get him into the mid 90s receptions wise. And like 12.3 yards per reception is good. Like, he gets the touchdowns up. This guy is legit going to be not just a breakout, but I think a league winner in fantasy football this year. And I think not a lot of people are like, he's wide receiver 12 right now in rankings. So that's high for the fantasy community, but I don't know that people outside of that, like the people that you're going to be drafting with in your home leagues are going to be looking at Michael Pittman as that same top 12 guy. They're going to be like, okay, I like Michael Pittman, but I'm not going to draft him until like the 7th round.
Yeah, exactly. But this is why you listen to our podcast.
Right, exactly.
Go on Fantasy Pros.
But like he's shown elite upside, and I'm excited to see where he goes. Right now he's 29 on underdog drafts. So people that know what they're doing are drafting him much higher. Wide receiver 17 in underdog drafts. So I love that value, especially like I think he crushes that wide receiver 17 draft selection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think he crushes that, and
me too.
There's no way that he's not an upside. But
I think we both have him in our top 12, right? For rankings?
Yes, I believe so. But like even the success rate versus coverages, he was 79th percentile against man, 88th percentile against zone, 96th percentile against press, and he had a 77% success rate against double coverage. So when you have the other thing too that you have to factor in is when you have Jonathan Taylor, that like changes the game because teams don't really know when you're going to run it or when you're going to pass it. And some of the best years of Matt Ryan's career, right, were when he had Todd Gurley. And now he's got now he's got Jonathan Taylor. So it's like this offense as a whole is going to be much better than it was last year, and it was already good. And I think Michael Pittman is going to be a major benefactor of that. And I think Matt Ryan will improve him. And to me, there's no way he's not a top 10 wide receiver this year. And I definitely think he's going to be a league winner. I was trying to find the strength of schedule for him too. 6.6, so the same as Mike Evans. Really good. I like it.
Checks all the boxes. And then if you want to say the offense, let me go double check. But the offense was not too bad last year. They were the 16th ranked offense. But Jonathan Taylor was also the RB1, so it shows that they can produce league winners even at the 16th ranked offense. Not to mention the fact that with Matt Ryan over Carson Wentz, I would expect that to go up. It's not nearly the upgrade that Russell Wilson is, but maybe go up like 4 or 5 spots.
Yep.
Which could get you to the like 12th ranked offense in the league, which
is pretty good.
I would say that's good enough.
Yep. And number 5, and the final guy that we have on the league winners list, certainly not the last one. I think there's a lot of guys that could be league winners, but number 5 is Cam Akers. I know. Cam Akers had 2 yards of carry last year. In what, 5 years?
That's so gross. So gross.
Yeah, he had 3 rushing attempts on 5 yards, 0.6 yards per carry, but the playoffs is really what you're looking for. He just wasn't efficient in the opportunities that he got, obviously, last year in the playoffs. And the one thing that I would note, and there are two main things with Cam Akers that I think people have to pay attention to. A, it's the fact that the Los Angeles Rams, I was about to say the Las Vegas Raiders. I have no idea why, but the Los Angeles Rams, at least I'm not calling them the St. Louis Rams. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Means I've made progress. They did not add. They drafted Kerwin Williams. I don't know what round it was in. I think it was the 5th round. Yeah. So they drafted Kerwin Williams, who is basically going to be a nobody, 3rd or 4th running back on the team. They let Sony Michel walk. Darrell Henderson's still there as a number 2 running back, all-purpose guy. I think he's just literally at this point a handcuff for them because Cam Akers was like in the postseason was force fed. So it's like they didn't add literally anything to this running attack that would make me feel like, okay, they don't believe in Cam Akers, right? And the second thing is the fact that they seemed to, even after he came back from his Achilles injury really fast, it seemed to not hinder Sean McVay's desire to give him 20 touches a game. And even when he wasn't playing well, they still force-fed him the ball. So the main concern that everyone has, obviously, at this point is the Achilles injury. And running backs typically have an extremely hard time coming back from an Achilles injury. The difference, I think, for Akers is that he's 23 years old. He's younger, and he was able to come back from the Achilles injury extremely quickly, get some reps in the postseason last year, and now he has a whole offseason to recover. And so for me, the Rams haven't done anything to spell, okay, we don't believe in Cam Akers, and Sean McVay loves to feed people. And I think Cam Akers is going to get 20-plus touches a game this year, every single game for the whole season. And obviously because of that, I think that puts him in the top 10 of running backs. But I think he's also going to be a value. Right now he's pick 46 and underdog. So he's basically an early 4th-round selection in some leagues. I just don't see how Cam Akers is not a smash value here, and how you don't draft him with extreme upside. He's just if Sean McVay believes in him, I believe in him.
Yeah, me too. That's a great point. He's definitely the riskiest guy we have on this list, yes, for 100%. Sure, because of that Achilles injury. But he also has tremendous upside, as you said. Obviously, the offense is fantastic. Top 5 offense in the league last year. I think they were only top 10 statistically, so even then, top 10 offense. That's going to stay the same. He's clearly the workhorse on paper. I think he's going to be a workhorse on the field. McVay historically uses one running back. And letting Sony Michel walk and not replacing him, to me, was a huge indicator that they believe in Cam Akers. And let's not forget, people use the Achilles against him. And I understand long term, absolutely, but for the short term, people use it against him too, and why on how he played poorly. They're saying, "Oh, he can never recover. Look how bad he was in the playoffs and in the regular season when he played." He was coming off an Achilles 5 months after he tore it. He tore it in the middle of July, end of July. July 20th is when it was announced that he had torn his Achilles last season. So he was coming off. He was playing in January. In February, so he was about 6-7 months into that. He's now going into this year, he's going to be a full 14 months after that Achilles injury. That is a huge difference. He should be fully healthy because he was not fully healthy. It was clear he was not fully healthy. He was playing at like 50-60%. He's now going to be playing at 100%. So I don't know how good he's going to be. I really don't. But Najee Harris statistically wasn't fantastic last year. I think he was at like 3.9 yards a carry, 6.3 yards per reception. Wasn't super efficient, but guess what? He had over 370 touches. I'm not saying Cam Akers is going to get that.
You can't say that because he probably will if he stays healthy.
I could see him getting 350, 340 touches. Yeah. And if you do that, you're a top 5 running back based on volume. It's really hard not to.
Just 20 touches a game for 17 games is 340 carries or 340 opportunities, which I think he can hit.
If you look at the guys that he's around getting drafted he has more upside than every single one of them by far.
Yep.
Is there a running back within like 5 spots that have the same upside of him? Maybe Javonte. But Javonte is a lot higher. Maybe
and frankly,
Fournette if he lost.
Javonte has way more risk attached.
Yeah, in terms of competition, for sure. But like even the guys after Cam Akers, David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, maybe Josh Jacobs, Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, Clyde, Miles Sanders, AJ Dillon. None of those guys come close to the upside that Cam Akers has.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's a smash. Like if you get him in the 3rd or 4th round, I think he's going to be a player that way exceeds where he's drafted, and goes to a point where, if he finishes as a top 7, top 6 running back next year with his 340 touches, similar to the range where Najee Harris was, then you obviously smash the value on him, and you got a player that probably won you a league because you have a RB1 that you drafted in the 3rd, 4th round. So it's like, I think he's going to like be on a lot of teams that end up being championship teams at the end of the year because of that. I keep having visions in my head of Todd Gurley back in the day and how much work Sean McVay gave him and how much opportunity he gave him. And I feel like if they do that with Cam Akers and he's healthy and he's good and the Achilles injury doesn't really affect him, then he will be like, not necessarily like Todd Gurley, because Todd Gurley for 2-3 seasons was just otherworldly. But I think he can be a top 5, top 6 running back in fantasy football if they give him the work and he sticks with that the whole season. I think there's nothing that tells me that they won't give him the work. So there's that. But there is your top 5 league winners for 2022. Interesting list. Fun list. Yeah. Jerry Judy, Jalen Hurts, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, 2 Mikes, and then we got Cam Akers. We got a lot of stuff going on the show in the next couple weeks. Be sure to check out the next episode, our hot draft day decisions. We'll see you later, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.